Now it's time for Politics Monday. Here to break down the political implications of the president's tweets over the weekend and preview the 2020 Democratic presidential debates to come, I'm joined by Tamara Keith of NPR. She co-hosts the NPR Politics podcast, and Kimberly Atkins of WBUR Radio. Hello to both of you. It is Politics Monday. So before we talk about those other things, I want to ask both of you, and I'm going to start with you, Tamara, about Amna's report from Virginia. This couple, they're very devoted to each other, but they've got real political disagreement. How common is that, and how emblematic is it, do you think, of the larger political divide in the country?
I think it's more emblematic of the political divide than it is common at this point, because as the report indicated, there are a lot of people who don't want their children to date someone from the other political party, for instance. There is amazing polarization right now, and this sort of the bipartisan couples used to be more common than they are now.
What do you find in your reporting, Kimberly?
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, there's certainly a microcosm of the kinds of divides that we are seeing in this country and the way that people on different sides position themselves, with him saying, you know, yeah, the president, I don't like everything he tweets, but I think he's doing a good job. And the other side saying, no, I find what he says and does appalling. I can't imagine how difficult it must be within a relationship.
Yeah, it's curious because you see something like that and you wonder, I mean, you know, there are some examples that have gotten some publicity, but it doesn't seem to be the norm, but it does say a lot about our country. So let's talk about the news, Tam, of the last few days. The president started tweeting furiously at a rapid pace on Saturday morning about Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings. We've been reporting on it on the program. Stepping back and looking at the president's criticisms of Baltimore, of the congressman, and then Al Sharpton today, does this help President Trump politically? Well,
there certainly is a strong pattern in the people he goes after and the way he goes after them, the people and places. Does this help the president? In 2016, he campaigned, came down the escalator, said some Mexicans are rapists. He had a fight with the Gold Star family, who were also Muslim. He said a Mexican judge couldn't be fair. So President Trump in 2016 was doing and saying, and don't forget the birther thing, doing and saying many of the same things that he is doing now on similar themes. And his campaign defends it in the same way that they did then, which is he'll go to bat against anyone who goes to bat against him. Will it work? It did work in 2016. I talked to a number of people today. One Republican pollster said it could certainly work again, depending on who the Democrats nominate. Basically heard the same thing from a Democratic consultant. And then also I talked to some political scientists, though, who've done some research that finds that independent voters and Democrats are going to be turned off and mobilized in sort of an opposition to the president in much the way that he hopes that his base will be motivated.
How much of this is determined, Kimberly, though, by which states it comes down to? I mean, it apparently helped him in those states that made the difference. We talk about them over and over again in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
It makes a big difference. I mean, we have the Democrats who are in Detroit getting ready for this debate. Michigan is a key city, and Michigan is one of those states where the black vote did not turn out in 2016 the way it had in the two previous presidential years. And there is a concern that this kind of talk will depress the black vote. And so it's incumbent on the Democratic Party to try to get out and motivate those voters to get out and vote. We don't know what will happen, but we've seen this president go to this not just during the campaign, but throughout his presidency. He likes this cultural divide. He likes this cultural division, the stoking of cultural division, particularly after he gets off of something tough. If he has a political loss, we just had Mueller testifying, and that was directly where he went. So it is a pattern.
It is interesting some folks have looked already at the way the President Trump, Tam, talks about cities, inner cities, and the way then he talks about people who live in rural areas.
Right. And the term infested, he saves for inner cities. When I went and looked through all of his tweets, and going back throughout his tweets, whenever he talks about someone being racist, he's in almost every case referring to a person of color being racist. He does this. It is a pattern that he repeats again and again.
And we don't know, of course, what's in his head, whether to what extent this is deliberate, to what extent it's what he's just thinking at the moment. But as Tam says, there seems to be a pattern.
It's absolutely a pattern that goes back decades, goes back to the way he talked about the Central Park Five. It goes back throughout his life.
Literally decades.
Yes, yes. So this is the way he has repeatedly spoken about people of color, especially people who challenge him. Elijah Cummings, of course, is the chairman of one of the committees that is investigating the president and his administration. So we saw him go straight to that sort of attack. It seems to be a place where he retreats to. He seems very comfortable there. The problem that it creates, of course, is Republicans who refuse to call him out on it, and they sort of have been twisting themselves into circles to try to really make other excuses that it was about policy or something else, when it was clearly an attack on people of color in Congress.
In the little bit of time we have, I do want to turn to the Democrats. The 2020 candidates, Tam, they are going back to the debate stage this week. 10 of them will be there tomorrow night, Tuesday night. The other 10, and we've got a picture of the lineup, the 10 who will be there on Tuesday night, and then the other 10 for Wednesday night. What should we be expecting?
So Tuesday night, I think the most interesting thing will be whether Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren bring out their contrasts in some way, or whether they sort of ignore each other and talk about their policies. Pete Buttigieg and Beto O'Rourke are two candidates who need a moment. They had been polling really well. Pete Buttigieg has raised a lot of money, but he didn't have a standout moment in the first debate.
Kimberly, and we're hearing some more efforts on the part of these candidates to define themselves, to distance themselves in some instances from each other.
Yes, they're trying to set out their agenda. We saw Senator Kamala Harris, who will be on that second night, laying out her health care plan. We already saw surrogates from both sides, both Senator from Senator, former Vice President Joe Biden's team.
Right.
Sorry, it's a lot of candidates on the stage.
Name all 24 of them right now, I insist on.
Already fighting back and saying that pulling it apart. So I think in the center of the stage where you have Cory Booker and Kamala Harris flanking former Vice President Joe Biden is going to be where the real sparks will fly.
That's going to be interesting, and that is Wednesday night. But Tam, again, I mean, as you said on Monday, this is the night. This is the last debate before the middle of September. So, and where the rules get tougher, the threshold gets tougher.
Well, and not very many of these people who will be on stage have qualified for the September debate
For the September
yet.
debate. So this may be the last chance. It will be the last
Yes.
chance some of them have to make an impression.
Indeed.
We thank you both. Kimberly Atkins, thank you. Tam Markey, thank you.
You're welcome.
Politics Monday.